Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, a show where longtime Mac and Apple users share practical tips, everyday workflows, and honest takes on Apple technology. I'm Marty Gensius, a college professor, podcaster, and tonight we're shining a light on one of the most underused features built right into your Mac. It's the Spotlight search. I gotta admit, I don't think of Spotlight a lot, and Tahoe has done some major upgrades with it, and so it's becoming more evident that it's, for me, a usable source for it. But we're going to take a quick look at the different things it can do, our experience with it, and hopefully encourage you to take a look at all the wonderful things that it can do. Tonight's panel, well, it's me, and then we've got Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio. I'm a former foundryman and educator, currently retired. I have been an avid user of computers and gadgets since high school, and I love chatting about all the gear, software, and accessories I use, and the ones I wish I was using with this old gang and our audience.
Chris.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I'm a 78-year-old retiree in Tucson, Arizona. I've been around the Mac since 1984, spent some time working with the Apple user groups with Apple itself, and then did some university IT. And now I'm retired and playing full-time with my Apple toys and enjoying the old Mac gang.
Charlie.
Hi, I'm a 70-year-old from Houston, retired. I have a lot of Mac gear, including my latest thing, Vision Pro, which I'm having a lot of fun with. And there's some serious interesting things that are going on in that space. Anyway, it's good to be here, and good to be here with the group, and looking forward to the discussion.
Bob.
Good evening. My name is Bob Wood. I'm also in Tucson. I have been around the Mac not as long as some of these guys, but I have been a Macintosh user group member and leader for going on 30 years. Happy to be here and learn something every time I come.
Well, that's our gang for tonight. Let's take a look at I put together every time we do a show on a topic, I try to find some good links that will help you and frankly help us know more about what we're going to talk about. So we have some resource links. You can find it at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. And if you go to the video of this episode, in the show notes, you'll find all the links that you can use to learn more about Spotlight and the things that you can do with Spotlight. But to kind of just review, we have a article in here that comes directly from the Mac User's Guide. Search for anything with Spotlight on the Mac. And that's a good starting point. I use Spotlight. When I use Spotlight, it's to search for something. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my experience when we get to that. Then narrowing your search results in Spotlight. It gives you some tips on how to do that, also from the Mac User Guide. And then finally from the Mac User Guide, Spotlight settings on Mac. And talks about particular Spotlight settings that you can do if you want to change or alter your searches and to pull up search history and things like that, or delete your search history. Then another article by Cult of Mac, how to use the all-new Spotlight on macOS 26 Tahoe. So kind of alluded to it earlier that this has gone from kind of a rudimentary search into a more efficient, effective, and kind of cross-media, cross-file type way of searching. And this article from Cult of Mac tells you how to use it to get the best out of the new Spotlight on Tahoe 26.0. Then there's also another article from Twit, Spotlight Search in macOS Tahoe, what's new? And it came out last October, but it gives you all the basic information about it. AppleMagazine has Spotlight search tips for Mac and things that you could do. And then, well, I'm going to save Alfred for later because I think that's something Peter wants to talk about in terms of search and such. So those are resources. Again, you can find it on the video version or the audio podcast version. Just look in the show notes and you'll get the links for that once we finish producing the show tonight. So first question to the group. When you need to find something on your Mac, what's your go-to move? Is it Spotlight? Is it Finder? Or something else completely, entirely different? Has it changed over the years? Well, yeah, and I'm going to start this round. I used to use Finder pretty exclusively, and I would organize media files and things that I have pretty clearly. So going through Finder to find them, or even using the search in Finder, was relatively successful for me. During that time over the years, I started picking up other apps, and one of the apps that I picked up was HoudahSpot. And HoudahSpot is like a complete file search engine for whatever you want on your Mac. Because instead of going folder by folder and area by area and using the Finder search, I would go ahead and use HoudahSpot. And it would not only search what's on my Mac, but it would also search if I had attached drives on it. I could set it up to also scan those. So it became a pretty good app. And it was a paid app when I first started for it. It still is a paid app, but it's also part of the SetApp collection now. So if you're a SetApp user, you can have this extra kind of massive search process to look for files or media that you have on your Mac or even on the attached drives. Since Tahoe came out and all the talk has been about how much improved Spotlight has been, I started to use Spotlight more often. I know that there are settings that are on Spotlight. Some of the articles will talk about that. So if I just want to exclusively look for media, I can set it up and just get media files from my search, and it will search the Mac through all of that. I haven't quite learned the art of doing that, but again, the articles will explain how to do that. Pretty typically, what I'm looking for is PowerPoint files, because I am teaching and I'm using PowerPoint. And for example, I've got a course I'm teaching now. I haven't taught in 2 years, but I created PowerPoint for it. Where is it? What folder did I put it in? Blah, 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 blah. That's been a problem trying to find that in terms of files that I had thought logically, if I put it in here 2 years from now, I'll find it. I've been trying with Spotlight and using what I know is the file title, and been pretty successful with it. It gives me a whole slew of things. It will give me notes where I've pulled the PowerPoint into to store, because sometimes I organize classes in notes and then put in whatever documents or whatever agenda I'm going to put in for a class. It'll be a note with the media content that I need. So it will find those PowerPoints and find the media stuff just by searching through Spotlight on Tahoe. And so it's pretty effective. I'm using it more than I'm using Finder right now, just because of the nature of what I'm looking for. And I'm not using HoudahSpot as much as I have in the past. So maybe I'm growing into it and growing into how to use Spotlight. Peter.
Yeah, something else is my answer, and it has changed over the years. So shortly after I got into using Macs, and when I say shortly, a couple months, I adopted a piece of software called Quicksilver, and it was a universal search bar just like Spotlight. And I used that for many years, probably 10 or 11 years. And at some point, its developer left the scene, and I jumped ship for something called Alfred, which I've used for the last 10 or 12 years. These both beat the original Spotlight to the punch by years and years and years in some cases. I prefer built-in all things being equal. So I used Tahoe's new Spotlight, the version we're discussing, exclusively for about 3 months when it came out. Marty's showing the websites for Alfred. It's easy to install. It does have an annual subscription fee if you want all its features, but it does have a nice developer community that's got things that you can make it do that are extra, which is really nice. Uh, when I looked at Tahoe to compare it to what I'd been seeing in Alfred, uh, I was not unhappy during those 3 months, but I just was more familiar, and there's a little more. I mean, there was actually a lot more power to Alfred because I learned it and learned a lot of its peculiarities, especially for like moving lots of files from one place to another and stuff like that. That Apple probably relegates to Finder. I don't switch when something is 5 or 10 or 15% better. I think it needs to be twice as good, and in my experience, Alfred is more than twice as good, despite Tahoe's big improvements. That being said, if you're not using anything now, Spotlight, Alfred, any of the other competitors, I recommend the new Spotlight to anyone. I recommend if you don't use it, use it. If you do use it, learn more about it. And the only people I would suggest going to some third party is somebody who has a lot of complaints about what they wish they could do, but it doesn't quite do. I continue to use Spotlight on other folks' machines when I'm helping them, and I encourage them to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
Chris.
Peter, I have got to speak up for Alfred, only because I have been a regular supporter of Alfred for years through its multiple multiple versions. Let me say that correctly. I have been a supporter. I haven't been a user. That's part of the problem. I keep upgrading with it and set it up, and then I kind of forget it's there. The setup reminds you of all the things that it can do. And then I kind of go back to muscle memory and do that half of that stuff the way that I remember how to use it. So, yeah. I endorse Alfred. I need to get past the learning curve. Chris.
Yeah, I've also owned Alfred a couple of times, and I have vaguely. I remember Quicksilver. Gosh, that I hadn't thought
Yeah.
about that in a long time, Peter. But over the years, because I did macOS support, and particularly once I left Apple, I was in the real world of university IT and helping professors like Marty and grad students and so on, and staff, of course. Um, I had to stick with what the default pasta sauce was, and that happened to be Spotlight. There was, of course, a pretty big hue and cry when Apple originally started branching out on Spotlight, and this always happens when they trample on developer toes. And anyway, it becomes an argument, and it's out there if people want to read about it. But I did go back and check out Tahoe under Tahoe's rendition, and I did like it. It's become my default for launching apps because my dock, which is on the left side of my screen, is so small that I mostly reserve it now for applets that I've created um, in Safari. And so, I'll have one for my credit union, and I just click on that, and it just opens as a window, and I don't have to go through the whole web interface stuff. And so I launch most of my apps, from uh, there. And this, it's same token. I could do it with files. Don't kind of do it as much, although I could search on them. The other thing, of course, that's really useful is clipboard history. And that's great. And I mean, if you haven't played with it, it can be very worthwhile because, just in terms of, well, we'll talk about it some more, I'm sure. But let's see, in terms of file switching, yeah. Well, and like Marty, I mean, I used the Finder for decades. So, I can sort of do that with my eyes closed. And, so I sometimes default to that too. But, definitely Spotlight is worth looking into because it can save a lot of time. Charlie?
Um, Yeah, I use Spotlight for local searches more than general searches. I also use Finder Search, particularly for searching for apps, and I like adding when I do something. I also add the folder or app um, type to the results, which helps me find apps. Um, for general web search, I use DuckDuckGo browser and Duck.ai because it's anonymous AI stuff and it usually points me in the right direction. And I'm hoping uh, that I'm going to search on the clipboard history thing for Spotlight. I hadn't picked up on that, and I think I'll start using that.
Bob.
I also use Alfred for searches and as a launcher. I was about to say that I don't use Spotlight, but I believe that Alfred uses the same database with a slightly different interface look. So I've used Alfred for quite some time now. I'm hoping that I'll learn a new use or trick or two for Alfred or Spotlight tonight. To me, a structured folder system is how I use the Mac. Some people just dump everything into the documents folder and then do a search. That is a valid way to do it, but it's not my way.
Yeah. Our second question, most people use Spotlight to launch apps or to find a file name. What is the most surprising or least obvious thing you've actually done with it? I never really thought about it for launching apps. So although that seems to be well known and people do that, I did that. I've done that when I played with Alfred. Obviously, I mean, that was a lot of what I used Alfred for, was launching apps. So for me, with Spotlight, the surprising part for me, what might not be surprising for anybody else, was that I could use it to launch apps. Peter.
Yeah. Well, I've already mentioned that I use Alfred in place of Spotlight. So I'll tell you one thing I've done with it that has surprised a lot of people who are near me when I'm doing it. I, what I'm going to say could easily be done using Spotlight and shortcuts. And Spotlight has a focus on actions that would make it easy to find these things just as easily as you would find an app to launch or a folder or file, to open. I set up a word that will trigger a multi-library search. Okay, so I want to search for something at local library. It pops open multiple Safari browser tabs, 3 of them in the root case, and launches a search of those 3 nearby libraries, relaying the same search string to each. And right away you can switch between the windows. Another click or two can send the search to a few other not quite as nearby libraries or to all the public and academic libraries in Ohio. It works for books, music, movies. I love it. And as I was thinking of describing it, I was thinking, there's a couple other things I search for frequently and go to more than one place that I consider specific good places that I might want to set up something similar, like a music search could go to Discogs for, all the different versions of a record and all music for information about it, composers, all that kind of stuff. Maybe something could go to what's the app I use for movie information? I forget. Call Sheet and also IMDb, and the movie database. Hit all 3 of those, and you just could switch between tabs. I think there's a lot of potential for customization of this stuff for your peculiar needs. Chris.
Yeah, I mentioned clipboard history before. And, for anyone who does copy and paste a lot, it can be really helpful. And I mean, it's not only when you're chaining things, right? You're copying A to B and C to D, and you've got to jog back and forth. But it's also, I could be writing a text or an email and think, oh, I wanted to bring up that thing I saw this morning on Substack, and it was already copied, and so it's in my clipboard history, and I can just go down and grab it. And that can save a ton of time. And for, just in terms of history, what really got this kind of thing going, probably with Quicksilver, was the idea that you could hit a keyboard combination like it is today, of course, Command and Spacebar, and it would immediately bring up a window, and then you could just type WOR, and you've got Microsoft Word, and you're good to go. You're open, you're running, and as opposed to using the mouse and going up, finding the applications folder, and the whole thing. And like Peter's been giving us a great example of how shortcuts can be created for this sort of stuff, and it can be a real time saver. And I find that kind of thing very helpful, and pretty much always have. I mean, it's the real value of utilities like that. Charlie?
Yeah, I'll have to look at the clipboard history. I wasn't aware of that. And uh, let's see. The other thing is, I think I can use Spotlight to search emails using date ranges and search for emails with attachments. I would think that would be very useful. I haven't pushed on that very hard, but maybe somebody here can tell me how that works. Um, I'm also curious if I can direct Spotlight to look under particular apps, meaning Notes or Obsidian, and just search on Obsidian or Notes. Does anyone know for sure on that?
I'm going to say yes, you can. I don't know how to do it on Spotlight. I know how to do it in Alfred, where you can drill into a folder or something like that, and your Obsidian Vault would be easy to target and then search.
I'm also curious to see if Spotlight can point to specific sources like Tamu Library or something, and I'll probably report back on that for later.
For clipboard history, I use the app Paste or paste.app. It's included in my SetApp subscription. It's also available separately. That being said, clipboard history is a feature that I very much miss when I'm using a computer that doesn't have it. As Chris said, sometimes if you're filling out a form, you gotta put in your name and then your address and then your city and your state or something along those lines. And with clipboard history, you can copy all of those and then go to the form you have to fill in and paste, and then go to the history and paste the next thing and so forth. If any of our listeners are not using some kind of clipboard history app, I urge you to try it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's not just listeners, it's people that are on this show. I think I get excited about clipboard history apps and have gotten Paste and you name it. I've probably purchased it with the belief that this will be the best time saver for me. The problem is twofold. One, you have to learn specifically how to use one because they're different in each app. And two, most important, I have to remember to use them. It's just not part of it's never been drilled into my system. So maybe I need to, write on a blackboard 100 times, I will use my clipboard manager, or just use my clipboard manager and replicate it on a blackboard 100 times just to be able to get the system down in ways of using it. To know that it's available in Spotlight, I got to check that out. To know that it is, and it always has been available in Alfred, is another thing I need to check out. But then it's sort of when I'm in the middle of workflow, am I going to actually remember to use it, or am I going to go back to the old way of, oh, it's over here, I'll copy it, and then I'll take it over and paste it down here when it's already 5 times in my clipboard manager somewhere. Okay, so here's the final question for the group. MacOS Tahoe has added 4 browse modes into Spotlight: applications, files, actions, and clipboard history. Which of these feels most useful for your daily workflow, and which one do you think most users will completely ignore? I start off with this. I'm going to keep it simple and keep it fast. For me, Probably files, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a file or a file type, particularly a file with a file type. So if I'm looking at leadership theories, I don't want the article on leadership theories. I want the PowerPoint that I created on leadership theories. So I also then have to put in a file type in order to get particularly what I need. So probably files would be my first choice. Then clipboard history, as soon as I get to learn how to use it and use it correctly. Then actions. Actions seem a little bit more complicated, not only to remember to use them, but to organize them in a way that it's meaningful for my workflow. And then finally, applications. I told you how I was able to open application with Spotlight, and it was really kind of okay. But most of the applications I have that I use are down in my dock. And so I can go there first to get them. So those are my choices in the order of choices that I have. Peter?
Well, I'm going to jump on a bandwagon here. I think the clearly best thing that Apple added to Tahoe was clipboard history. Certainly the most useful to me. I know lots of people have had different ways of adding clipboard history for years and years, but a lot of people just don't know about it. One thing, if you're composing a document, you've got a lot of source stuff in another document to go in that other document and copy this, copy that, copy, all the things you think you'd need, some URLs, an address, a couple of names, stuff like that, and then go into the other document. And as you're writing, just whenever you need something, hit a button, you got a list, and you paste whenever those things occur. That's just the best. The thing that's the least valuable, I guess, I don't think it's the least valuable, but it's the thing most users will completely ignore, and that's actions, and I don't blame them. Most people find that creating shortcuts is a painful process. This could change this September with all the 27 OSs, which, according to the rumor mill, allow the creation of shortcuts using natural language. I look forward to that with a great deal of hope, because it will allow a lot of people to leverage a lot of the things that they do very repetitively and do it much more quickly. Chris.
Yeah, Peter, I think you hit the nail on the head there with what's possibly coming up in terms of natural language with shortcuts. I really look forward to that because I sort of struggle with shortcuts. My default answers are going to be, apps, files, and clipboard history, pretty much in that order. But also just sort of a hint to watch this space over the summer, starting in 2 weeks with the developer conference. Apple's got some updates coming in Apple Intelligence. There have been a lot of rumors about Siri and so on. So we'll see how this fits into that. But needless to say, getting grounded in what we have already would be helpful later on. So, Charlie?
Yeah, is folders an option on the search? I sometimes just search for folders, and I do that in Finder. So to me, that's useful because I'm fairly good at directory structures and such. Let's see, I'd say applications for sure, and I definitely am going to be looking at clipboard history. I don't know. I haven't used much in the way of actions, so I'm going to have to look at that a little bit. And is there equivalent of Spotlight on the phone? Because I would like to see that. I don't know if Spotlight exists on iOS or not. So I'm going to pass on to Bob and the group.
Like Chris, I think that finding applications and files is the thing that everybody will use the most. I've not used it for actions because, like Charlie, I'm really not sure what they are. If it means shortcuts, I have a few shortcuts that I use, but and one or two that I've actually created, but that's about it. So applications and files for me.
Well, guys, this is always kind of an interesting synergy for me, because what happens is we do a show and I find out there are all these great resources now I have to look at that I found. And there's so much more that I can learn about this item. It's, you think you want to walk into a show and you're going to be an expert. I don't think that's a healthy way to think about doing this. But if you walk into a show and you raise people's curiosity, including your own, about what something can be done with it, then I think you've got a good show. And I think we've had a good show, because certainly I've got a bunch of ideas of things that I want to look at with Spotlight and with Alfred. And I'll be back in both of those sandboxes soon. Charlie mentioned about folders. When I do search words, what I get is folders, because as Bob said, he likes to keep his stuff organized. And so I generally, if I've got a particular lecture or a particular class, it's going to go in a folder. And so when I search for something, the folder comes up and I have the option to click in that in Spotlight and open up all the files, or see a folder with the files and what's in there. And that's been helpful. These last 2 weeks for me has been, again, preparing this class that I haven't taught in 2 years. So I've wound up relying more on Spotlight than on Finders in order to find it. And Spotlight has been there probably 80 to 90% of the time, finding what I think is there at least, and turns out to be there. So another great show. We will, as it's been alluded, we've got WWDC coming up. So once that passes, we will talk a little bit about the implication or potential implication for the hardware, and more importantly, the software that could be helpful for seasoned Apple users, and things that we will want to look at that's been hinted at WWDC. Coming up, after WWDC is MacStock, and I want to make a mention of that. Look at macstock.com, macstockconference.com. There's also MacStock Conference and Expo.com, but MacStockConference.com will get you there. And it'll give you a list of and pictures of folks who are going to be there, little biographies in terms of what they teach and what their experience is in the Mac world. And soon there'll be a schedule put up of all the different talks and presentations. I'm going to be doing an evening experience that's going to run for about 2 hours, and it's going to be sort of a floating troubleshooting Mac large audience group. So pulling in the experience that I have in doing group work and getting people to aggregate in areas where they want to learn more about, or they want to help people learn more about, and creating that sort of experience for Saturday night is when we'll be doing that. But lots of great presentations throughout the day. Even if you can't make MacStock, you can get a digital pass after it, and you can see all of the presentations in their entirety. So check out MacStockConference.com. And should you choose to come and join us, if you put in Pod Talk, you get $50 off, courtesy of Mike Potter and MacStock. You get $50 off your ticket for that. It's coming up July 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Bob, are you going to do the eCam thing?
I will do I will be there, but I'm not going to do the eCam thing.
Okay.
I'm traveling with Roger, and Roger will be at eCam.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So they're doing a July 9th eCam workshop all day long. And then 10th, 11th, and 12th is going to be our workshops all day long, and then some special evening events, including David Pogue there to talk and sign books of his latest book. So a good experience, MacStockConference.com. Take a look at it. So we're going to go around the bend and hear from our panelists. Where can we find you if we want to get in touch with you? Peter.
You can find me at @ppetto, PPETTO, and I sort of check Facebook, I sort of check Instagram, and I think I'm on a bunch of other things that I rarely check. So,
All
I guess
we
those would be the
all?
places. Well, I have accounts a lot of places, and they're all at ppetto. Some of them are
Yeah.
like sort of post-only accounts. I mean, when I'm asked to get some publicity out for something, I post there, but I'm not sure how effective it is. But
Yeah.
I do what I say.
Okay, Chris, thanks for being here tonight. Where can we find you?
Yeah. Like Peter, I'm not very active on these things. On Threads and Instagram, you can find me at first name, last name, Chris.Wesselman. And my domain, chriswesselmanphotography.com, points to my SmugMug account. So those would be the two. And there's a contact on the SmugMug account, chriswesselmanphotography.com.
Okay, Charlie.
I'd say LinkedIn, CyberTruckTX. I do have email, but I'm so swamped I don't usually give that out generally in my phone number. But go through LinkedIn, start there. It's CyberTruckTX.
All right, Bob.
Well, there's tmug.com, TMUG.com, and that is the website of the Tucson Macintosh Users Group. Also, there's thinkbob.com. That's my personal website for my web design and Macintosh support job. And my photography website is dangerousbobphotography.com.
And me, you can find at Gencius, Jencius, at Blue Sky and Mastodon, and also in LinkedIn and other sources too. But if you want to get a hold of me and find out what other projects I'm in besides the Old Mac Gang, go to thepodtalk.net, and you'll see links to this website or links to this show. You'll see links to other shows that I do and other shows that I'm on. So check out thepodtalk.net. Hey, thanks to the panel for doing this. And really, I hope folks will take a serious look. I know I will now take a serious look at what Spotlight can do. Like I said, I've been thrown into using it the last couple of weeks, and it's been a pretty good response for me in terms of what I'm doing. I don't open up HoudahSpot because I get most of it directly from Spotlight. So congrats to Apple to raising the bar on it in the latest Tahoe release. Thanks for joining us on the Old Mac Gang. New episodes drop on YouTube at youtube.com/@theoldmacgang. Have a tip, a correction, or a topic idea, reach us at the email address thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com or visit thepodtalk.net. Spread the word to other longtime Mac users. Tell a friend that the gang is still at it.